This is Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your hosts, Paul Charchian, Christian Peterson, Matt Harrison, and Brian Johnson.
Welcome to Wednesday. It's the Panic Room at Fantasy Football Almost Daily. I'm Paul Charchian, co-host Christian Peterson, the reigning champion and king, Christian Peterson. Nice crown. Very nice. Thank you. And Matt Harrison is the challenger today. Welcome.
Hi.
You've been the king before, and you've been dethroned.
Yeah.
Now you're here to get it back.
That's
get
okay.
The title back.
Last week was his birthday. Today's the 1 week anniversary of his birthday. But it's my wedding anniversary today, so
it is.
Wow.
Well, if your wife was here, that it would be even better, I think, and she'd probably have a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
The premise behind the Wednesday Panic Room is we list 5 players that fantasy owners are panicking about, and we challenge our contestants, Christian and Matt, to establish a case for whether the appropriate level of panic is
pass now?
none, some, or acute. None, some, or acute. We begin with player number 1, who is Mark Ingram, benched last week after fumbling. It now appears that it's something of a timeshare between the two, averaging a dismal 3.8 yards per carry. He's got 1 rushing touchdown on the season. Last I checked, and this was about 2 weeks ago, 9 different Saints had carried the ball from inside the 5. That's depressing. All right, so let's tee up Mark Ingram, appropriate level of panic. As reigning champion, you get to go first.
Yes,
Christian.
We should be acutely panicked about Mark Ingram, who I didn't like right from the beginning of the season. I will have you know.
Yeah, all right.
He's a guy who just has not lived up to the hype. He hasn't finished as a fantasy RB1 ever in his career. But that point aside, we certainly have to be worried about Tim Hightower here. He's the guy who came in last week when Ingram got benched after his second fumble in 2 games. Hightower ran very well against a very good Seattle defense.
Would you say
he ran
very
fine,
well?
but it was
under
defense.
4 yards a carry.
Yeah,
it was what Mark
he
Ingram
ran
usually
a lot.
gives you. He ran a lot. That
he was
did
given
do.
a lot of opportunities
Yes.
to run against Seattle, but he was really good last year. You'll recall after Mark Ingram went down with an injury, season-ending injury last year, which is always a concern with him and is still a concern because he's not injured yet, and it's probably coming. But Tim Hightower, over the last 4 weeks of last season, was the number 2 fantasy running back. Can you believe that?
I did not remember. I remember that he was good, but I didn't remember him
just
powering
huge
teams
games
through
at
the
the end
playoffs.
of the year.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that we have to take seriously, and if they're saying it's going to be a timeshare going forward, that's something we have to take seriously. And then you mentioned the other problem here is inside the 5. Mark Ingram has just 1 rushing touchdown this year, just 2 carries inside the 5. They're giving it to John Kuhn frequently, and Drew Brees leads the NFL in pass attempts inside the 5-yard line with 16. So they're passing most of the time, and when they're running, they're often not giving it to Mark Ingram. So even if we didn't have this idea of Tim Hightower suddenly being part of a committee, I would be pretty worried about Ingram. And now that Hightower is also involved, I'm acutely worried about Ingram.
Okay. Matt, what is the appropriate level of panic?
It is some.
Some.
Okay. I'm not as worried, and allow me to explain why, please.
I will do. That's the whole point of this game.
In fact, if you don't, you have no chance of winning.
That's right.
I rest my case. So as you mentioned, the yards per carry is pretty bad this season. The fumbles have definitely caused for at least some panic.
Right.
But what I do like is he's essentially on the same pace last year in the receiving game. And it's kind of weird because Mark Ingram kind of became a good PPR running back last year in the games that he did play. He's on pace for about 25 yards per game through the air, about 3.5 catches per game. Last year he had 4 catches per game and about 30 yards through the air.
All right.
But as CP said, the Saints are passing inside the 5 and then inside the 10. He never had a receiving touchdown before the season, and this year he's got 2. So he's got 2 of the receptions from in close. In the overall landscape of running backs, I don't think that I drafted him as an RB1, but I definitely drafted him as an RB2, and I think he's still probably a low-end RB2 or a flex start. He could get back on track this weekend against San Francisco. And then his fantasy schedule, it looks scary, but it's not as scary as it is. So Denver is coming up next week.
Yeah, that's not
They're,
good.
It's
They're
not
not as
good,
good as you
but
might
it's not.
think.
It's not
Denver
as good.
Denver has slumped to being a middle of the road run defense.
They're a middle of the road
They're
run
an
defense.
elite pass defense still, but they are. I think by yards they're number 17.
So
By rushing
As I
yards
said
allowed.
on Halloween
Melvin
week-
Gordon just housed him
Yeah.
for a solid game.
it looks scarier than it is. Carolina's next, and they haven't been as strong against the run. The Rams have not been as strong as they were last year against the run. And then he gets Tampa twice in the fantasy playoffs, and everybody's like, "Oh no, Tampa!" Tampa's not right now a bottom 10 run defense in fantasy against running backs. They've
That's
been
because
terrible.
they're missing McCoy.
Gerald
right?
McCoy.
They've been missing McCoy. When he's
Yeah.
back,
Yeah, when he's
they're
back, they're
almost
great. When
elite
he's
level.
yeah, that's right.
If you look at the stats and the way that it's played out, Tampa's just kind of been bad all year against running backs, and it's definitely a downward spiral for them. He gets them twice in the fantasy playoffs, so I have some level of concern for Ingram, but I'm not dumping him or getting rid of him for nothing right now.
You breezed through. I thought the best point that you made through the whole thing. San Francisco's on the docket this week. That is a really, really bad run defense. It's possible that Ingram could have a massive game this week against a really bad defense, and he goes right back to being the starter.
It's possible Tim
breeze through it.
Hightower could
he
have
could
that
too. No,
game.
he could too. Absolutely. I have Ingram in one league, thanks to Matt trading him to me wisely, and I am acutely panicked. But in terms of just who made the best argument, which is what this is all about, is make the best argument you can. It's less about who's right and who's wrong. I think Matt made a brilliant argument.
Thank you.
Star number 1 goes to the challenger, Matt.
Yeah.
Topic number 2, Cam Newton. Appropriate level of panic, none, some, or acute. 0 or 1 touchdowns in 3 of the past 4 games, and I think very concerningly, and somebody will make this point, I'm sure, giving up goal line carries to Jonathan Stewart. It's been a lot of his value, especially when he's not passing for a lot of touchdowns. What's the appropriate level of panic on Cam Newton? We begin with our challenger, Matt.
I'm guessing this is probably going to be Christian Peterson's answer, but I have no concern on Cam. He's averaging 32 rushing yards per game this season.
That's way down.
No, it's not.
Really?
He averaged 39 last year,
That's it?
and he
Okay.
averaged 38 the year before.
All right.
He's still on pace.
Seems like less.
He's still on
Maybe
pace.
it's because the rushing touchdowns aren't there.
Yeah, he's on pace for 7 to 8 rushing touchdowns.
Okay.
Which he had 10 last year. So he's a little bit down, but maybe they're just trying to keep a couple hits off of him at the goal line. I'm still not super worried about that. 7 to 8 rushing touchdowns is fine. And his schedule is favorable for him to come back around in the passing game where he's been more down. He gets the Chiefs, Saints, and Raiders in the next month. Those are all awesome matchups
Chiefs
against
aren't
the
an
pass.
awesome matchup, but okay.
It's pretty good. I don't know if
It's a
you've seen
good. It's a good matchup.
Okay,
All right.
whatever. Agree to disagree on the Chiefs. I think it's better than you think. But his fantasy playoffs are the Chargers, the Redskins, and the Falcons. And the Falcons are the absolute worst team in the NFL against quarterbacks right now. That's your Week 16 game. He could be your Week 16 championship hammer. And maybe all the comments that he made in this post-game press conference, it motivates him a little bit. Maybe he's a little bit more psyched up. He's got the chip on his shoulder. He's playing with some aggression. And maybe the NFL throws a couple more flags in his favor, and the offense gets moving a little bit more. So I like Cam Newton. I'd be buying on Cam Newton right now.
All right. Reigning champion Christian.
In kind of a reversal
Whoa.
here. Yeah, I'm going to go with
Well,
some.
you just reversed it moments ago.
I did.
We got your answer. You need to lock in your
Oh.
answers.
What do you
We're
mean?
defining,
Why?
we're
Why would
defining these rules better.
If I try to say none, I have no chance of winning
That's not
this
true.
star.
That is not true.
That's true.
It's all about
not-
the
that
stars
is not
to you,
true.
isn't it?
Some.
Well, it should be all about the stars. We're about winning here.
So you said a lot of good things about Cam
Thank you.
Newton and why you should only have some level of concern and not an acute level
Yeah,
of
and
concern.
shockingly, your pants stayed on.
The schedule is very good. I had that written down here as well. Although I will say the Falcons in the playoffs, Week 16, he had a bad game against the Falcons just 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was the game he got concussed in, where he did not.
It was the game he got concussed
He did not
in.
perform
didn't-
very
well,
well
he didn't
in
finish
that game.
but he didn't finish it either.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Derek Anderson went on to throw 1 or
In
2
garbage time,
touchdowns
at the
in
end.
that game.
Yeah. So I like that the schedule is very good at the end. I like that he is rushing. He is still running the ball. The first week after the concussion, he had, I think, 2 rushing attempts for 1 yard. So we were a little concerned. But then last week he had 7 rushing attempts for 43 yards. However, The big problem is at the goal line right now, where it feels like they have tried to do something to limit his exposure by giving it to Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart has 4 very short goal line touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. And he's converted them all. So that's the easiest spot where the defense knows it's coming, right? They know this is how they use Cam Newton. This is our chance to get a big hit in on Cam Newton down here at the goal line. And they've gone away from him. They've gone to Jonathan Stewart. So if we take away, if that's a trend, I know Newton has a short touchdown too since the concussion, but if Stewart is taking even some small percentage of those carries, that takes away 1 or 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns from Cam Newton the rest of the way. That's a big part of his fantasy value. So, I think you have to be a little concerned with the way that they are using him, or rather not using him at the goal line.
Point for the reigning champion.
I'm shocked right now.
I am too. That's a solid.
I look forward to the trade offer in the Empire League
that's right. That
later
is
today.
that is not
Well,
coming.
Dynasty is different.
Something we've never done in the storied history of the Panic Room. We've never thrown out a team defense before. The Vikings team defense. It felt like this was a defense that you could just plug in every week and forget about it. That was going to be your team defense. Never had to think about making a switch other than bye week, which is now behind them. Is the Viking team defense the appropriate level of panic? Is it none, some, or acute? Lock in your answers.
Locked.
Lock
And
in your
loaded.
answers. Thank you. All right, Matt. No, Christian. No, Christian's up
Let
first.
this guy
Sorry.
go.
I guess I'll go with some on the Vikings
It's
team
already
defense.
I
wishy-washy
guess
on
I'll
it.
go with some.
Yeah.
Sell it a little, will you?
Well, I mean, look, it's partly because I'm just depressed as a Vikings fan to see how poorly this team has performed over the last couple of weeks, both on offense, which we knew they were going to be bad on offense. But
Right.
after the first 3 games, when they went bonkers, it was like, all right, well, this is a Super Bowl caliber defense that could just lead this team throughout the season. But I don't know. It's catching up to them in a big way. In the last 4 games, they only have 5 sacks. They scored 3 defensive and special team touchdowns in the first 3 games. Now they've had just 1 since then. But the lack of the ability to get to the quarterback, I think, is a big concern here. The Bears on Monday night had 2 backups. Both of their guards were backups.
Yeah.
And we could not get any pressure whatsoever. The Vikings could not get any pressure whatsoever on the Bears. So it feels like opposing offenses have looked at the film and they understand that what the Vikings can do is get after the quarterback, and they're throwing more quick hitting passes. They're just getting rid of the ball.
Yep.
They're running some screens, some misdirection, that kind of thing.
And
So
it's all working.
I have reason to believe Mike Zimmer will be able to adjust to this a little bit and start getting more pressure on the quarterback. But for now, I mean, we're at 3 or 4 games now where the defense just has not performed at the elite level that they did in the first 3. So
Okay.
some concern here.
Matt.
All right. I have no concern. It's a none. And the reason is we're talking about fantasy here, not reality.
Yeah.
Yes, Chicago, that game was bad. But we're 1 week removed from a game against Philly where they forced 4 turnovers, and they were 1 yard away from one of them turning into a defensive touchdown when Andrew Sendejo went down. It's also worth noting that Sharif Floyd is getting closer to healthy. He's now questionable this week. It's possible he could play this week. And Andrew Sendejo was out for the Chicago game. Xavier Rhodes and Captain Munnerlyn were both playing through some injuries. So they're going to be a little bit healthier in the secondary as we
Didn't
heal
Rhodes
up a little
get
bit.
re-injured, or didn't he get hurt last game, Monday?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what he said.
That's what I'm
he
saying.
played through
Oh,
it.
I
though.
thought you were.
He
Oh,
played
I thought
hurt.
you were saying he was getting healthier.
He played through.
When instead he's actually getting more injured, like he did.
Well,
this last
he's
week.
presumably getting healthier in the days since the Monday
I
night
see.
game.
Okay.
Is
So,
what Matt was trying
Okay.
to say.
As we also look at it, it's Vikings defense and special teams, and they have maybe the 2 best kickoff returners, or the best tandem of kickoff returners in the league, with Cordero Patterson and Marcus Sherrills. Both are a threat to break it at any time. And if you're in a league that accounts for points against, the Vikings have given up 21 points max to any team this season. They've been under 20 in every other game, or 20 and under in every other game.
And even fewer points if you take out defensive touchdowns.
Yeah.
The Eagles only scored 8 points on offense.
Yeah. So
Now he's helping you make your argument. I think I know where this is going.
I know where this is going too, because I'm right.
Point. Challenger.
So
Star,
just to be
challenger.
clear, Xavier Rhodes is healthier now in the same
than he
way
was
that
on
like
Monday.
Jamal Charles is healthier now than he was 2 days ago, but he's on IR.
God,
but
you're
just
nitpicky.
because time is passing a little bit, he's
That's
actually a little bit
healthier.
healthier now than he was the
at
moment
the start of the game
moment that
before
he suffered the
pre-injury.
injury in
That's
the middle
right,
of last week's
pre-injury.
game. Okay, I got it.
All right, it's the first time we've ever talked about defense. Now we're gonna
Let's just do it.
tantalize
Let's
people
just go.
with kicker. Stephen Gostkowski, who has been a force at kicker for 10 years or however long it's since they moved from Vinatieri to him. It's been basically he's been as plug and play a kicker as there could possibly be. He's right now fantasy's number 13 kicker. He has 0 or 1 field goals in half of his games this year, and uncharacteristically, he's missing field goals and makeable ones. That's all different for Stephen Gostkowski. All right, the appropriate level of concern here, Matt.
It's none again.
None again.
I'm not worried about the ghost. Here's what's happening. He missed 3 field goals this year. The distances on those field goals, 50, 48, and 39. We're hardly in Blair Walsh territory here. He's also made field goals from 53.
The Blair Walsh territory is the 27-yard line, by the way.
Yeah. He's made them from 53, 51, 47, 46, and then 7 other distances that aren't as impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, he's not attempting a ton of field goals. He's made those. You want me to go over the Blair Walsh territory where he's making them?
And 7 others, those were easy.
They're like 20, 30, that kind of thing. So he's not attempting a ton of field goals. That's because his team is scoring touchdowns, and you want a kicker on a good offense. Only Matt Bryant has had more extra point attempts than Gostkowski this year.
Mm-hmm.
Bryant's at 27, Gostkowski's at 26. And how quick we forget, last week he accounted for 11 of the Patriots' 41 points. 11 points was, I think, 4th best by a kicker last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not worried. He's fine.
All right. What's the appropriate level of panic on
Acute.
Stephen Gostkowski? Acute.
Acute. Even at his best, he's the 4th best kicker. Are you kidding me? He's been the fantasy's number 1 kicker for like the past 6 years. Literally number 1.
But not every
He's
week.
the one reason why all of you people who love kickers so much, you're arguing well,
this whole thing's going to turn now.
We'll pick Stephen Gostkowski and we'll be fine. We know what we're going to get in him. He's going to be the number 1 kicker every year.
So angry about kickers.
Here he
He's been
is.
angry about kickers.
He's
for
number
years.
13. He hasn't attempted more than 2 field goals a game since week 1. He has 0 or 1 field goals in 4 of 8 games. You mentioned that. He's missed 3 field goals and, oh, by the way, 2 extra points. He's also missed 2 extra points. He's just not getting the field goal attempts. This offense is too good. You can't be an elite kicker when all you're doing is kicking extra points. 6 extra points is not going to get it done for you.
This offense is too good.
Yeah.
You drafted him. You spent an early round draft pick on this guy, or you spent like $3 or $4 for him at your auction, and you would have been better off with 12 other kickers. So
I would like to note that CP is upset because he finally owns Gostkowski this season.
I do, in one of my high stakes leagues. I felt so good about my team. I was in like round, 15, and nobody had a kicker, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Number 1 kicker.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I'm going to take Charchian Matt's advice. And now he sucks.
I'm not like go take kicker early guy. What are you talking about? That's not my advice.
Ridiculous. Kickers suck.
Your hatred for all things with a foot has blinded you completely on this issue.
Absurd.
It's
Gostkowski
ridiculous.
can foot punch as many field goals as he wants.
Point. Challenger.
Oh,
This was not all about kickers and why kickers should not be in fantasy football. Bang. Oh, look at that. Bitter. But you can't give up your scepter yet.
I can't because I need to write.
You can't give up the scepter at
you
this
like
point.
a marker?
Yes. Here. No, you can't have the scepter either.
I want the scepter. I never get the scepter. Look at that.
Oh,
Willie Snead. Fantastic in week 1 with 9 catches, 172 yards, and a touchdown. Since then, has not topped 87 yards and has been held to 56 yards or less in a team playing for a team that scores a lot of points but has got a lot of options. The appropriate level of concern for Willie Snead, is it none, some, or acute? We go to the former champion, Christian.
This is my answer to this one. I think this one was rigged right from the start. Willie
came
Snead.
up with the panic room players.
Yeah, he was on your side. He's been making arguments on your behalf the whole time.
I'm not making arguments on his behalf. I've embellished some of his points.
You have.
His very salient points from time to time.
It's true.
Let's get back to Willie Snead.
right.
I have just some level of concern on Willie Snead, despite the
Not
fact
a
that
Matt Sucks level of concern.
No, the targets are there. He has 19 targets in the last 2 games, 15 catches in the last 2 games, one of which was against Seattle, where he had 6 catches for 56 yards. That's not great, but it's not a catastrophic output against a defense like Seattle's. The schedule we mentioned a little bit with Mark Ingram earlier. It's sort of neutral against the pass, so there's nothing really much to see there. I just think Willie Snead. Everybody got really excited when he had 180 yards and a touchdown in Week 1,
right?
And that's just that's really not the player that Willie Snead is. There's a lot of weapons in New Orleans. Michael Thomas looks great. They have Brandon Cooks, of course. So this is what you have to expect from Willie Snead. He's going to be involved most of the time as kind of a PPR asset, a slot kind of guy where he's not going to score a bunch of touchdowns, but he's going to be useful in those PPR formats. He'll score a couple of times the rest of the year. He's being targeted 7 or 8 times in every game. So I think there's some level of concern because he's not the elite level guy that it looked like maybe he was going to turn into at the beginning of the year.
All right, Matt.
All right.
Don't let it go to your head, those 3 stars.
I have no concern over
No
Willie
concern.
Snead. The nice part about Bill Snead,
Billy,
is that
as his friends call him.
He's played 4 quarters in 5 games this year.
4 quarters in 5
he's
games.
played the whole game.
Okay.
Oh.
You're saying he's failed to finish half of his games?
No, in 5 games he's played
Okay.
all 4 quarters.
Okay.
You got it.
And then the other games, he's
The other
been
games
knocked out
he's
early?
been injured and
Okay.
and knocked out.
All right.
So in those 5 games, he's averaging 8.6 targets per game. That is more targets per game than Demaryius Thomas, Jordy Nelson, Julian Edelman, Alshon Jeffrey, and Brandon Cooks. He's getting more targets than Brandon Cooks. And if we look at the last 3 weeks since he's come back from his injury, he's averaging in the last 3 weeks 8.6 targets again.
Mm-hmm.
That's more than both Michael Thomas and Brandon Cooks, who are averaging 8. It's about the same. It's a pretty even split in this offense right now. And people love Michael Thomas and people love Brandon Cooks.
Michael Thomas, were it not for Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz, he would be in the
Were
conversation.
not for these other 3 guys.
Yes.
And
For rookie of the
and
year.
I like all of these guys, but the point is Willie Snead was dropped in one of my leagues today, and I'm looking at this going, well, why? He's just as good of an asset as the others. The upcoming matchups are good. Fantasy playoffs, he gets Tampa twice, just like Mark Ingram does. So I'm feeling no concern at all, and I'm going to try to pick up Willie Snead in the league where he was dropped.
Okay. Correct answer, Matt sucks. So
Thank you. All right.
we have a narrow 3-2 victory. By the way, Willie Snead, slot. Nobody mentioned that he runs most of his plays out of the slot. What I love about Snead is the predictability that you get because it's so easy to find slot cornerbacks and go, is this slot cornerback good or bad? And then, adjust your matchup. And because of that, we've been able to get
Figure out
pretty
when to
good
play him and when
predictions
not to.
on Willie Snead. And so that part of it is one of the things that I still like about him. All right, thank you for joining us. Our new reigning champion is Matt Harrison. Does it speech or anything? We should have some kind of a passing
Ceremony?
a passing of the
baton,
but,
or just throwing it across the room.
the passing of the scepter.
Yeah. I refuse to
I'm trying to pass you
participate in
the
that kind
scepter
of
right now.
chicanery.
Thank you.
Oh.
There you go.
Here.
Yeah.
BS.
Yeah. Well, you're very bitter. Very bitter. Tomorrow there will be something here. I don't know what you guys are going to do because I never know what you're doing on Thursdays. But it'll be tantalizing.
Oh.
You'll definitely want to come back for that for sure. Also, all the player rankings going up at LeagueSafe Post over the course of Wednesday. You'll want to check LeagueSafe Post for that. You can follow us on Twitter at Explosive Output, at CoolerHeads29.
His head's not so cool right now.
No, he's steaming. There's smoke
Hotheads
coming out of
29.
smoke coming out of
Cooler
those
heads did
dudes.
not prevail.
No,
in
Cooler
this.
Heads did not
I'll
prevail.
see you in
Panic
2
room.
weeks.
All right,
CP.
we'll see you next week for more Panic Room. Bye-bye.